Hello everybody, it's Helen Lovatt here. You probably mostly know me, but for those who don't, I'm at the University of Nottingham and I'm also chair of the Council of University Classical Departments. So I'm going to talk to you today about the Equality and Diversity project that we're running, and I will just share the screen of my PowerPoint slideshow. To do that, here we go. So this project was set up with Gesine Manuwald and funded by University College London, and the report was co-written by Victoria Leonard. Basically, the aim of the report was to gather data about gender, the main focus on gender, race and ethnicity, with the intention of bringing together information and giving people ammunition to press for change in their own institutions. We decided to focus on gender and race, partly because we felt those were the most important aspects, but also because if we tried to take everything into account, it would have been an overwhelming task. We did, however, have some information about that in our survey, and we tried to consider other elements, other equality characteristics, with a little bit of a stab at social class, which is such an important part of ingrained inequality in the UK. We did three main things. We gathered together existing data, we compared that data with other data sources, and we collected new data. So the existing data that we gathered included journal submission and acceptance rates, material from a survey by Emma Bridges and another by Zina Kamash on Roman archaeology, Peter Toneman's article on companion volumes, and Greg Wolfe gathered material on external recognition. So this is all very useful data. Particularly good for comparison purposes was the WCC's survey of a few years ago and the work done by the Royal Historical Society on both race and gender. There were two surveys on gender. But the most important thing we were doing was collecting new data that can give us information about the state of the field, of classics in particular, at the moment. And we put out, most importantly, an experience survey, and that had 294 responses, so it's a good response rate across a very wide variety of seniority levels, categories, geographical areas. And that survey addressed particularly experiences of discrimination, the way people felt that had affected their career progression. We were really trying to pin down the way that the leaky pipeline functions, so the fact that women are much less well represented at more senior levels in most disciplines and also in classics. But we also looked at teaching and curriculum design and how that can support equality, and the environment, including journals. We also put out a head of department survey, which had the main aim of putting this material into context, so looking at university policies, how well they were implemented, and the university environment. So obviously there's quite a lot of data as a result of this, and we haven't yet completely finished processing it and writing up the findings. So I can't give you an enormous amount of detail, but I thought I'd just mention a few of the more important and striking things. So it's not really a shock that women, non-binary and BAME colleagues feel disproportionately affected by discrimination. And none of this is really that shocking, but to see the figures in black and white is, I think, very useful to make us realise that there is still a lot to be done. So for instance, for journals, women submit work significantly less often to the three flagship journals we looked at, and one could argue about this, but there's no doubt that Journal of Roman Studies, Journal of Hellenic Studies, and Classical Quarterlies are perceived as very important journals on the world stage. Only about 30% of submissions came from women, and in addition, the acceptance rate was also slightly lower. It's about the same for JRS, but lower for JHS and CQ. So that's quite striking. That's one of the reasons why women are less represented in these prestigious journals. I think another of the most important findings from this, coming out of the qualitative material and from Peter Toneman's study of the companion volumes, is the way that the attitude towards different areas of classics or different types of research skills sometimes act to reinforce inequalities of various sorts. In particular, the very high regard in which skill in classical languages continues to be held is a problem when the vast majority of people don't have a chance to learn classical languages until university. And the emphasis in other areas tend to be felt they're less hard, less important. A particularly good example of that, which is often associated with women, is reception studies. So we might want to interrogate our own attitudes and portrayals of different aspects of classics and how we describe them. Perhaps less surprising, policies not always as well understood or implemented as people would like. So for instance, training about unconscious bias, not always taking place. So people who are involved in recruitment or promotion committees don't necessarily have a good understanding of what they are actually supposed to be doing. And probably even less surprisingly, external recognition markers, which we looked at through prestigious roles in learned societies and fellowships in the British Academy, are still very unequal. So for the British Academy, it's 10 to 20% women in the classics subject area. So really not very representative at all. So I'm not going to go into that much detail today. I thought I would just finish by saying a few things about our plans for the future and ask for your help. So we're going to publish the report in the next 3 months, and at that point it will be circulated on the classicist list, and we'll also hold an online event to discuss and disseminate the findings. So it is really important that people use the report, bring it to the attention of your head of department, make things happen, use it to make things happen. I'd like to do some further research. The questionnaire data is rich. It would be nice to make more of it. In particular, I'd like to do more work on other equality characteristics, particularly disability, caring responsibilities. It is possible to tackle the issue of social class in a more in-depth way. It will also be necessary, I think, to follow this up by looking at the effects of COVID on equalities and when the ref happens. And another important plan is to look at undergraduate recruitment and school student experiences, because that really does shape our discipline, where the vast majority of our undergraduate students will have studied classics at school. I would also like at this point to issue a call for events. So we'll be offering funding of up to £500 per event to facilitate people taking this work further, either by focus groups or discussion events or dissemination or research projects of your own. And we have a couple of things in the pipeline, including an Athena Swan event at Oxford and a discussion forum for heads of department. But this really needs everybody to join in and help us take this work further. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you with your ideas and plans.